a film about the Commission for a Sustainable London 2012. They call us the Sustainability Watchdog, and we've been around since the bid was won. Our job is to provide assurance over the sustainability of the London 2012 programme and its legacy. We'd like to share that story with you, hopefully so you can learn from it. The London 2012 bid was all about supporting the sustainable regeneration of East London. So the title The Most Sustainable Games Ever was something that was conceived at a very early stage. It was decided that we needed an independent commission to oversee that sustainability. I've chaired that commission since the very beginning. It's been an honour to do that job, and I'm delighted to share some of my experience with you.
I guess everybody's woken up to the fact that the world is not a particularly good place at the moment in terms of big sustainability issues, energy, water, waste, procurement, what we buy. And unless big events like an Olympic Games actually succeed in reflecting that level of public concern, then they're not really doing their job properly. So an Olympic Games today has to be able to demonstrate best practice on carbon, energy, water, waste, construction, procurement, food, ethics and good governance. That's quite a big list.
The Olympics is inherently unsustainable. It's impossible to conceive of an enormous event like this, which requires a substantial amount of building and in its construction and development phase, and then in its running phase, people travelling, hundreds of thousands, millions perhaps of people travelling from all over the world using prodigious amounts of fossil fuel, and it being developed within a country which is already way outside its sustainability limits for it to be sustainable. It is completely impossible.
I wanted to make sure that, given Sydney was already developing its own policies for their games in 2000, that we had a really strong process around environmental issues, as they were called then. And for me, making sure that they were absolutely integrated at the very beginning was going to be key to a successful London bid.
So our expectations for the Commission at the start were interesting because we weren't really clear how it was going to happen. However, we wanted to make sure that this was the greenest games ever, and we wanted them to be able to put the various organisations on the spot and call them to account.
So I was actually involved in the bid for the 2012 Olympics. In fact, I gave evidence to the International Olympic Committee about how green and sustainable these games were going to be. But obviously I never take any claims like that for granted. And so as soon as the bid was successful, we started talking to the Department for Culture, Media and Sport and said that they would need to set up an independent assurance and scrutiny body.
Over the period that London bid and won and designed and delivered the Games, the context for sustainability has changed. I would say it's moved from a worry about climate change and the impacts to a worry about food and energy and water supplies around the world. The Independent Sustainable Development Commission had trained the bid team to actually bid a sustainable games, but we realised as we were about to win and move it forward that actually it wouldn't be delivered unless there was an independent body that would oversight the delivery process. And therefore, for us, this was absolutely essential, and we fought to have the commission set up.
When the Commission first established, nobody trusted us because we were new. The delivery bodies thought we might act against their interests, and the NGOs thought we were a bureaucratic waste of space. So we've had to really earn that trust and confidence over time. I think in the main it's been very successful, but there have been some examples where it hasn't worked.
We were able, I think, through the Commission to really understand the whole life cycle of the Olympics, whilst giving LOCOG and ODA the freedom to do their job.
One of our commissioners resigned because she objected to one of the sponsors of London 2012 and wanted to use the Commission to campaign against that sponsor.
When I heard about Meredith Alexander's resignation, I had a lot of sympathy with her because I knew her main reason for so doing was the involvement of the corporates and our lack of ability to try to influence that particular process.
Ultimately, I was concerned that the hard work of the Commission, its integrity and careful ways of assurance may have been undermined or damaged by her so public decision to quit.
I did consider resigning as well. After Meredith resigned, I did have a conversation with her, and she suggested that it would be beneficial to the victims of Opal if other commissioners followed. On reflection, I still admire Meredith for doing it. I mean, she was personally concerned and she had to make a statement, and she did the right thing by resigning from the Commission to allow her to make that statement. The way she resigned, I must admit, personally, I would have done differently. I think it would have been kinder and politer to actually tell the Commission what was going on. But I still think she did what she had to do, and I think it was worth doing.
When we started the Commission, I was absolutely determined that this would not be a talking shop, that it would be a body with real influence that can make things happen. I think we've done that in a number of areas, both in construction and in staging the Games. There are some examples where some NGOs maybe think we didn't go far enough. There are some examples where delivery bodies maybe think we've gone too far. Striking that balance is of the essence of the work of our Commission.
I think one of the best examples is in our procurement programme, where we work directly with Jerry Walsh and the procurement team and CSL to make sure that our procurement process included sustainability at the core of everything we did in terms of every procurement contract that we concluded.
Yeah, the Commission involvement with procurement predates me in that they did some work prior to me joining LOCOG, and also at that time my Commercial Director Chris Townsend felt that what we hadn't done in procurement had sufficiently engaged with the report and indeed with the Commission. So it was very much a part of my early work to make sure that we'd redress that situation, and got very, very close to the Commission right from the get-go when I joined.
The Commission has been fabulous at encouraging Clean Air in London to participate in the process and to speak up. And they've done that by listening, acting appropriately when they've agreed with the issues, and we've really seen some tremendous changes in respect of what can actually be achieved by the organisers themselves.
We'd released a report which had shown some really egregious problems in the supply chain, things that were being made for the Olympics, mostly in factories in China, and LOCOG really weren't responding to us very well. CSL issued a press release saying that this was a very serious issue, and they backed us up on our arguments with LOCOG that they needed to actually take some action on this. We think there was an issue at the beginning when CSL was set up. They have a group of commissioners who cover various areas, and none of those commissioners came from a labour rights background, which is the sort of issue which we as part of the Play Fair campaign have been looking at. And so they had lots of people who had other areas of sustainable development in their kind of expertise, and we were arguing from the start that sustainable development also involved labour rights and supply chains. But despite the fact we put forward some names, there was no one who had that knowledge who was kind of at the heart of CSL from the beginning. and we think that means that they didn't have that focus there in their work. We are an assurance body. We provide a professional service. This means that everything we do needs to be grounded in fact, it needs to be well researched, it needs to be correct. We've been described in the past as the single source of the truth about sustainability, and I think that's what we should be.
Assurance from the perspective of the Commission is about looking forward, it's about strategic engagement, and it's about multi-program and multi-stakeholder engagement. It is about thinking about an entire program all as one. The Commission's form of assurance is about thinking about the entire tree. We're not thinking about a branch of the tree or a leaf of a tree. We're thinking about all the things that make up the tree. But it's also about looking forward rather than looking back. We don't wait until a tree has reached maturity to understand whether it's been given the right soil conditions, the right water and the right nutrients. We ask those questions as the tree is being grown, as it's planted, as it's watered and as it's tended throughout its life. And that's what we've done for the 2012 programme.
Good evidence is vital when we track all the different sustainability commitments London 2012 has made, from the bid through all their strategies and plans. We've also made well over 200 recommendations to the Commission, and I need to be able to track their performance against all of those areas. And it's essential that we get the sort of level of detail and evidence to back up our opinions on those, so that when we report publicly against those commitments, against our recommendations, we know we're reporting based on fact and not just on opinion.
If you think about the range of issues that we were grappling with and the stretching nature of the targets that we set on carbon or waste or whatever it might be, you needed a professional body with a wide range of expertise, and I was always surprised in a pleasant way at just how detailed the analysis that the Commission brought was, and at the meetings they were able to bring that real scrutiny that I think we needed.
With a budget of little more than £200,000 per annum and a staff of 3 people, the Commission has told the true story of the most sustainable games ever. This appears in a total of 21 formal reports, 213 recommendations, numerous web statements, media articles, blogs and tweets. Where there have been gaps, we've influenced the delivery bodies to fill them in areas such as use of PVC and HFCs. In cases where the delivery bodies have been unable or unwilling to fill the gaps, we've made sure that these are not brushed under the carpet. I think the Commission's achieved a lot, but then I would say that, wouldn't I? I'd like you to hear from other people. For me, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and I'm only going to be really satisfied when somebody else takes this principle and copies it.
The Commission has been very successful in my view, and I've talked to a lot of people involved in the games delivery. In fact, my teams in Arup were involved in designing and delivering a lot of the games. And a lot of people I've spoken to said the fact that the Commission existed was a big incentive to ensure that the actual objectives were delivered. The idea of having an independent Commission is a very good one and I think should be replicated elsewhere. But it should be remembered that it's part of the solution, and therefore having organisations that are committed and signed up to a pledge like they did in London is important. And also, of course, setting very good ambitions in the first place is also critical. But with all those things in place, then I think it's an absolutely exemplary way to do this.
There's a rising tide of expectations now for all big events, not just the Olympics, but for people organising football tournaments or athletic events or even rock concerts. So what's been established with the 2012 Olympics in terms of independent governance, scrutiny of what's being claimed and what's being done, is something that now needs to be replicated for all big events of that kind. And I see no reason why it shouldn't. The London 2012 Olympics has set a new benchmark. I wouldn't want to be the person who runs an event that falls short of that benchmark.
Assurance generally is something that's been around quite a long time, but not as it applies to sustainability, which is such an all-encompassing word and concept. So this is really an opportunity for people to take this methodology that's been used for assurance on sustainability and apply it elsewhere, whether it's a construction project, whether it's a major event in another country. It's absolutely replicable, and I noticed this in my work in particular in the United States. So I'm looking forward to seeing this model replicated elsewhere.
Yes, I think we have created a new partnership template that CSL could use with other sporting events or any other type of event that comes to London in the future. And hopefully we can demonstrate the success we've achieved, and CSL can use it as a perfect example of how organisations can work in partnership with them.
And one of the things I'd say is CSL hasn't been perfect, but it's been better than anything that's gone before. And we'd really like to say to the Games organisers for Brazil, do something similar, build on this legacy from London and take it forwards.
My expectations of the Commission, first of all, was that it would hold the Olympic Delivery Authority and the London Organising Committee to account for what they did. And it has fulfilled those expectations in my view, having an independent body to whom the different organisations have to report has been a really good example of holding to account in a positive way. And because the Commission has been very positive in its approach rather than negative, I think it's actually added to the value of its role.
The Commission has made a real difference. It's asked difficult questions, it's held them to account in exactly the kind of way that it should have.
So, that's our story. I hope you've learned from it, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to know more, please get in touch with us.